all these micro compromises that you make to get yourself wherever you are that you're unhappy with. You can literally just flip it on its head, and you can make micro commitments to yourself and keep them every day. And just start with the small wins. I would drink a glass of water every morning before I did anything else, because I thought, okay, if I can treat my body with respect and do this healthy thing, I can continue to trust myself and, build the belief that I'm healthy and I'm worth it. So stack those small wins every day and let that build your courage bank.
Hey there, everybody. So today I'm excited to introduce to you a special guest. Her name is Brittany Stinson. So a little bit more about Brittany. She's a TEDx speaker, she's an operational strategist, and she's also the co-founder of Seeding Greatness. By the end of 2021, Brittany and her husband, they were completely burned out from the business that they had been building. They were working multiple jobs, running events, and just trying to raise their family. Brittany, she was experiencing health issues. She was too exhausted to play with her kids, and she was also emotionally unavailable, both at home and also in her business. And it's at that time that they hit rock bottom and everything changed. She quit her jobs. She started counseling. She changed her diet and she joined a gym. But more importantly, she learned how to keep promises to herself. She rebuilt her self-trust and she transformed her life. And the results, they speak for themselves. She tripled her revenue in just 2 years while completely realigning her physical, her mental, and her spiritual health. So in today's episode, we're going to dive into more detail into what she did and how she did it. So welcome, Brittany.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. I think we just have a lot of synergy, like from what we both are, really passionate about. So I'm excited.
Totally. All right. So I really want to learn about your story, and I know our listeners, they want to hear about it too. And so can you walk me through what was happening in 2021 when this all started?
Yes. I call it our crash and burn season. We were, COVID was hard for everybody in 2020. We just so happened to launch a business in the midst of it. And so in 2021, we decided, okay, the business is doing well enough. We're both going to leave our full-time jobs and really go full-time in this. And it was hard going, and it wasn't, we weren't profitable enough yet. And so I was taking on multiple side jobs. I was doing like virtual assistant work and all kinds of stuff I could do online. And so I was spending hours and hours in front of the computer from early until late at night. I had very poor boundaries around like, hey, work stops. And then, now there's family, and then I have to take care of myself. So that was really non-existent. To cope with a lot of it, it was a lot of queso dip and margaritas and tacos. And it's actually like kind of gross now that I look back, and how often we were like at the hibachi place and then at the Mexican place. And so that was a lot of my coping. And I would sit and I would scroll and shop, and I would just like rack up these credit card bills. And I thought, okay, well, I'll get, I need some clothes that are a little bigger because of all the seating I'm doing. And I didn't want to feel anything. And it was a very like numbing out cycle. And I shared a little bit with you ahead of time. Like my kids would ask me to play. I had 3 kids at that time. I have 4 kids now. And they're so energetic and happy. And I would just have to lie. I would say, mommy is sick, or I don't feel good. And that wasn't the truth. I was just like genuinely unavailable emotionally. I didn't feel like I could meet their happy level and play with them. I felt horrible. And our wedding anniversary is in December. And that, it was a really low point for us. It was really, that was 7 years in. It was just a really, really low anniversary for us. And we realized like, this can't continue. I'm having heart palpitations. We're taking out loans to put on these events that we felt like we needed for the business to succeed. It was too much stress. It was too much. It was unhealthy. And so we kind of like shut everything down. We offloaded a lot of clients. I quit those side jobs I had, and we didn't work for about 6 weeks. And that's hard through like, the holiday season into January. And I believe it was divine intervention. We met a really amazing mentor of ours right at the same time. And he sort of led us into this mindfulness and, hey, how do we take a step back and look at what's actually happening, what's going on? So, um, shutting all of the stressors down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then getting into what in the world are we going to rebuild from? And that was sort of the beginning of a really beautiful season.
Fascinating. Okay, so you shared a lot there in terms of
Yeah.
like the story from like what was happening and all that. Just so I'm gonna back up a little bit so I can because you shared a lot of different elements there, and then I want to really just kind of get into those details
Yeah.
so that I can have a better understanding, but so that our so that the audience can have a better awareness of what's going on or what was happening. You started that business in was it 2020? Was it?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
And then this is 2020, and that's yeah, there's a lot going on, and then you're
Oh yeah.
going like full force for like probably all the way till 2021. What was that like? What was going through your head at that point in time, you know, like in terms of your thoughts and your beliefs?
What comes up for me is there was this parallel universes of thought, right? There's like, I know that we're meant to do this business and I can feel it. And there's a reason that we felt called to leave our full time jobs and launch full time into our business.
What kind of business was it that you were launching at that point in time? What was the vision of that?
Yeah, we are speaker coaches, and my husband speaks a lot, and I speak as well. And so it's heavy professional personal development, and we use stages and speaking as the vehicle to help people, evolve in their ability to tell stories and be vulnerable from stage and impact people. So that's the business that we launched and went full time into. So that was one side is like, hey, we know like full on, we believe this, we're gonna dive in, 2 feet in. The other side was we gotta pay bills and like how in the world are we supposed to make ends meet? And we're trying to, follow this thing that we know that we're called to, but your like logical brain kicks in. You're like, oh my God, this is really hard. And not everybody pays on time and not all the gigs come through that you thought would. And so then I'm out there trying to, do what I can. Everybody, like, I don't want to say everybody, but, there's a moment where you're like, I got to do what I got to do. And so I'm on Upwork and I'm reaching out to my network and I'm connecting with people and I'm taking jobs because this is still really important over here, but I also have to go get groceries later, So that was what was constantly on my mind was this battle between what I know is possible and what we feel called to do and what the daily tasks and requirements and responsibilities were, what that we were faced with every day. And so fluctuating between the two it was havoc on my nervous system. It was it was horrible. And that is a really hard wrestle to be in between. So that's definitely where I was living every day.
And so, like, when that was happening, right? It's like, I guess, were there certain things that you were saying to yourself?
Yes, yes, yes. So whatever your faith is, I mean, I read the Bible a lot.
Yeah.
That's my particular faith. So whatever that looks like for you, I had to lean on that. And so it was a lot of okay, I'm not in this alone. I have divine help, you know? Um, I had certain mantras that I would repeat, like, if I can just get through this next hour, one more hour, one more hour. Practically, I had a journal next to my workstation, and I would do like a 9 o'clock, like a midday, and then an end of day shutdown sort of check in with myself. And I would just put a number on it. Like, how do I feel right now? Do I feel 2 out of 10? Do I feel 7 out of 10? And then kind of like I wanted to jot down what was happening that made me feel that number. And it, looking back, like I actually just found the journal recently, and the numbers are all really low for a lot of days in a row. And it was just so much stress and pressure. And, we're just all of our eggs are in one basket and we're trying to make this all work. And it was just really stressful. And so that caused the joy and happiness numbers to be so low. But the practice of checking in with myself was a thing that was helping me because it kind of grounded me enough to be like, okay, I can step out of this situation to like assess it enough that it wasn't all the way on top of me. So that was really helpful, I think, as well.
You're doing all these different practices. You're tracking all these things. You're like holding it together, moving. Like you had that dream, you had that vision, you're moving towards it. But then even with all that, it still got to the point where there was a point where it kind of things broke down. There's a breaking point. So what was that? What was that breaking point? When did, because you were doing all these things to like maintain it and to move, but it's like eventually it's just like, enough was enough. Like, what was that point? When did it get there?
I don't think I've ever shared this specific piece with anybody. We November of 2021, we hosted a big TEDx event. It was our first one, and it was in Metro Atlanta. And just to get through that event was financially and physically depleting. And then about a week later, my husband had an event that he was speaking at in Sedona. And so I got to fly out with him. And I felt like I was on a high because we had made it through our big event. Oh, I get to be in Sedona. This is fun. And it just kind of sucked. Like, we didn't get along very well. He went and did this hike without me. I was all mad. And it was like, it was a really like, it was just a bummer. I thought it was going to be a big help, and it really wasn't. And then about a week after that was our 7-year anniversary. And we just realized like we've been going through the motions for a really long time. And my husband struggles with mental health, and he tells his own story. He's very, very public with it. So I would never share anything that he doesn't share. But he's a suicide survivor. And he was like, we had got into some fight, and he was like, it just pulled me into a really dark place when you say these things and do these things. And that was the first time I ever said, okay, if you need to leave this situation, then go ahead. Because I refuse to be the person that causes you to go back to that, really terrible place. And I had never let it go like that. I've always had enough in the tank to fight and fight and fight and fight. And I just didn't have it in me. I was like, if you need to go, that's what you need to do. And it was like this big moment of like, something's like, this is really off. Like, physically, I'm 30 pounds overweight, like way more than I've ever been. My heart, I'm having these heart palpitations. Our marriage is where it is. I'm being this way with my kids. Our business is like super struggling. How do you have a bad time in Sedona, Arizona? It's like life was just showing me all of these different things. And that was the moment it was within a day or two. And it was just like, this has to change. This is horrible. And I don't believe this is why we are still on this planet, to live in this way. It's not, it doesn't even make sense. Like why would we continue to wake up with breath in our lungs to live this way? That can't be. And so that was the moment, for real.
Yeah, Sedona's a beautiful place.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just a bad day if you can't have a good day in Sedona.
For those of you listening, Sedona is probably one of the most beautiful places. It's one of the most chill, relaxed places. It's like if you need to get away from anything, that's probably the place to get away and just like de-stress. You go on hikes, anything.
Yeah.
And for all that to happen out there, right after that event, after that speaking gig, and then you flying out to Sedona, so you're probably gonna relax and you're gonna celebrate, you're gonna enjoy it. But then it's like, it's just amazing how like these things, right? It's like these stressors, they can just like stack one on top of another. They might kind of seem like a little bit innocent at first, like, oh yeah, it's like, it's just the kids, or like, oh, the bills, or this event, or like, or traveling, or this, or something with the spouse. But then it's like one after another, especially if they kind of like, if they don't really have a definite ending, right? If they these things start, but like they kind of like keep going and going and going.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because there was no like, that's what I thought getting through our TEDx event was going to be like, oh, we can have a deep breath.
Yeah.
And, we can just make it through this. And so I would just say, to like bring it into present day, if that's something that you feel like you're always saying to yourself, oh, if I just make it through the next thing, but nothing changes, and then you just have another next thing, and you keep pushing the finish line further out ahead of you, but you always feel this way, like just call like stop right there and assess like why do I keep doing this? And it doesn't have to be this way. I don't have to live and eat and feel this way.
With what was happening there, would you say that related to your boundaries as well? Like you didn't necessarily have the boundaries, but that's like a change that you had to make along the way as well to turn around?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you sort of, I mean, you mentioned it. That's what my TEDx talk, it's almost published on
Uh,
YouTube. So
Okay, good.
hopefully by the time you listen to this episode, it'll be out. But that's where that really started was the boundary, or call it, keeping your word to yourself. Like, how do I trust myself? If I say I'm going to do something, do I actually do it? Or do I continue to push the boundaries, or break a commitment to myself day after day? And they're just small, they're micro compromises, but they add up. And all of a sudden you're like, I can't trust myself at all. I say I'm going to go to the gym. I never do. I say I'm going to stop after one plate. I don't. I'm going to make these changes and I don't. And you just have such little self-esteem and such little self-trust that it's a really low and difficult place to rebuild from. It's possible, but it's hard when you get down that far. Yeah.
I mean, when did you create that TEDx? Was it like how far in advance before that thing? Because you're going through all these things.
Yeah, well, the time period in my life that we're talking through right now,
Yeah.
that is really the period where I was just living through it, and then I wrote the talk way, way later. So I just wrote the talk last year, but what we're talking about is like that was me trying to dig out of the hole and figure it out. And so it's really where it was birthed out of, was that 21, 22 season.
The TED talk that you did, was it during that period of time or was it more recent?
Nope, I just did the TEDx February 1st this year. So it's just been a couple months ago. Yeah, I had to live through it and figure my way out of it, and then I was able to give the talk. Yeah, I couldn't have given a TED talk back then. I hadn't figured anything out yet.
How did it shift? Like, because you're in this point where you're like everything's kind of like things aren't working out the way that you want it to.
Well, like I mentioned, we made some radical changes. He was running a mastermind. We shut that down. We just had to kind of sunset that program.
At what point was that decision like made? Like, cause like you had that mastermind, you had these things that were going on, and then it's like,
Yeah.
because it's like there's certain internal talk that's going on, right? It's like,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
because we're like everything starts with a decision. Like you made a decision to do one thing, but then like somehow something shifted, and then you made a different decision. What led up to that?
Yeah. It was all within that same month of like December 2021.
Yeah.
And to be honest, if you're in this type of situation, I think life is probably already showing you the signs. So the mastermind was already sort of feeling like the energy was a bit stale. People were sort of at the end of their contract. A couple people not really, but it was already just sort of fizzling. And so we just like together we made the conversation, hey, this is going to be our last month, and shut that down. I let the people that I was working with, I let them know, hey, I need to give you my 2 weeks notice. Like this, we're making some big changes and I can't keep doing it this way. So we did that. So that would be number one. I just made some like really radical changes and had to just like hard stop on a few things that were really uncomfortable to do, but they were necessary.
What was that like? What was that like when you had to tell those people? Like, it's like,
Well, the one gal that I was working for, I think she kind of saw it coming because I was like on every Zoom call we were on, I was extremely frazzled. I was like, I'll find it, and I'm late or missing the deadline or whatever. So she was very gracious. She totally understood. Definitely, she saw it coming. I think our clients were fine because we try really hard to over fulfill on anybody that we coach, and so they were good. Everybody was great. Everybody was supportive, and we didn't give like a ton of details at the time. It was just like, hey, we're gonna sort of close up shop here for a little bit.
was that a big shift for you? Like to be so focused like outwardly to your clients, right? But then all of a sudden be like, hey, you know what? It's like I'm worth it. or my me and my husband are worth it, or my family is worth it. Like was that a big shift to be able to be like, hey, boom.
The beauty of it was this was the season where people sort of stepped back from work anyways because it was the holidays. And so we kind of it was easy to like, people understood like, oh, you're gonna be offline for a while. But we didn't just like quit working and sit around. It wasn't like that. It was like I remember some days we would sit on the couch across from each other and we would have 4, 5, 6 hour conversations, like stuff that we needed to talk through for years. We finally just made the space and held enough space for one another and trusted each other enough to be like, where do we go from here? Like this has not, this is not working. And what do we actually want? That was really the conversation we were having most of the time. Like, what do we actually want to build and do? And I believe there's a way to do it in a healthy way. So, what does that look like? And that's where our mentor came into play. He gave us a book. If you've ever read, it's called Whole Brain Living. And she's a neuroscientist who had a stroke, and it put her into her right brain.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm blanking on her name, but if you look up Whole Brain Living, it's a great book. And so we started reading that. We were on Daryl was on the phone with our mentor quite often. And so those things sort of all came into play at one time. So open, honest conversations, shut everything down. We had a great mentor. I got back into individual counseling. We had done couples counseling, but I went out and found digitally, like I found a virtual counselor because I kept telling myself the lie, I don't have time to go into an office, but that didn't have to be an excuse anymore. I found someone who I could just meet with, just for myself to just have some conversations. And then we got a gym membership and we actually went. It was like a really big deal to be back in the gym and back on the treadmill. So it was really helpful.
I pulled up that book. It looks like, is it the one by Dr. Taylor?
Jill Bolte Taylor. Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
So that's the book that you guys were reading at that point in time.
Yes. It's pretty, it's a heavy read. It's not a light read, but even if you grasp a bit of it, like it was a great, great book. And I'll tell you the other book I started reading was How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LaPera. And I would spend hours reading that book. I was just like devouring that book. And that was a really big moment for me.
I'm curious. So whole brain living, because that's a lot of the, I do a lot of work with also the brain right now as well. What was the big realization for you when you went through that book, or for you and your husband when you went through that book?
Yeah, I like, so she talks about these 4 brains that we all have. And a lot of times we talk about like left brain and right brain. And correct me if I'm getting it wrong, but I'm pretty sure your right brain is like the creative one and your left brain is really logical, right? And so she encourages you to just spend more time in your right brain. And one of the two that's on the right side is very like ethereal. It's sort of what you are when you're born. You're like, there's no difference between me and the person next to me and love. And it's all very like, you're just connected to something much bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
And so meditating on that and focusing on that was so helpful because it feels like, oh, wow, like I'm way more empowered than I realized. And these problems are actually a lot smaller than, than I thought they were. So that was my big takeaway was like, how do I just spend more time in my forebrain? And how do I spend more time on the right side? And what does that look like? And how do I just like have more play and fun? And stop freaking out about everything that I feel like is an emergency. And it's not. It's really not.
It's fascinating. Yeah. And it's fascinating how the brain works. Because like from my studies and the work that I do, it's like people are usually predominantly locked in to one brain hemisphere versus the other. It's a little bit different for each person. Some people are more left brain dominant. Some people are more right brain. One is not better than the other. But I think the trick is sometimes people they locked into like one state just because of like the stressors or what's going on in life. But to be able to access another side, I think that's where the magic is, just having that flexibility, having that capability to bounce, to be able to access the other sides. And so that's just fascinating that you share that. How you were able to you were able to consciously do that. You bring that to your awareness, but you were able to access the right side more.
I mean, it took, it takes work. Like it takes an effort. It's a genuine conscious effort. But it's the funniest thing. It's the funniest thing when you feel like you're drowning and someone gives you the solution is to be more playful and have more fun. Everything inside of me was like, that's too good to be true. There's no way that could solve our problems. And it did. It just did because it's like, oh, well, the neuroscience proves that I think I can actually give it a try.
And so when it comes to like having fun, being more playful and having fun, like in that situation, like to, because some people like in that situation, it might seem a little foreign. It's just like, huh, have fun. Because if you're in a state where you're not having fun, or maybe you think you're having fun, but you're not, like, what's the definition of having fun at that point? Like, how did you define having fun? Like from what you were doing already? Because maybe for you, was what you were doing already fun, or did you think it was fun?
No, I no. I mean, if you like, maybe on the day where I was like numbing out and watching a lot of Netflix and eating all that food, like maybe I would have said that was fun. But I think we're all awake enough to say like, no, I wouldn't really define this as fun. But I do remember we would crank the music in the car more often, and we would just have these like silly singing, like sing at the top of your lungs moments. We watched the Super Bowl halftime, and I remember just dancing with my kids. And that was a big moment because I didn't, like I told you, I didn't really, that wasn't a lot, that wasn't available very often for me. And so just to let myself be goofy and be silly, like trying to do a cartwheel out in the yard with my kids for the first time in years. Like it was the ugliest cartwheel you've ever seen, but we were just, you know, it was just expressive. It was like whatever came up. It was nice. It was really nice to be like, hey, this is actually making a big difference on my mental health, my spiritual health, my family. It was a big deal.
Very cool. Very cool that you made all those shifts. And what was going through your head at that point in time? Like, what were you, like when you were like dancing during the halftime show, or when you're doing the cartwheels with the kids, like there was were your thoughts different at that point? Like, what were you saying?
You're always like in your conscious self, and then there's like all the subconscious that's happening at the same time. I think consciously I was just having fun, but subconsciously I think there was a shift happening where it was like, it's safe to have fun. Like you're great. This is safe. Like you don't have to be in fight or flight all the time. Like you can just be here. And so in the moment, it was like, oh, this is just goofy. And my older three kids are girls. And so we have a lot of goofy moments. And it's funny, it almost healed the like little younger me that's in there because we were being goofy together and I was being just super funny and silly. And they would laugh and go along with it. And it was like, oh, like we're all just little kids playing together. And it healed a part of me I didn't even like recognize needed healed.
That's awesome. How old are your kids?
Yeah.
How old are your three kids?
So now they are 11, 9, and 7. And then I have a 2-year-old boy.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
So what was it like for your kids to be able to see and experience that change in mommy,
Man, I wish I could ask them. I wish they were just a little bit older to remember. They started, I don't think they knew what was going on, but they did start to like ask more questions, right? Like I think kids know when we're like unavailable, they'll just kind of like go find their own entertainment or whatever. And so when I'm more present, it's like, oh, they'll tell me about what happened at school, or they'll actually run up and be excited and be more like open. And so I could see a lightness in them because it just wasn't so heavy in our house anymore. And that was really great.
That's very cool. So you had positive changes within your kids, within the household. They're more open, they're more lively, sharing more. like wanting to hang out with mom, right?
Yeah, it was like, oh, she's not sad or unavailable all the time. It was like, this is great.
You made those changes. You came across a mentor. You started reading these books, and then you started to make these shifts. You saw shifts in your family. You saw shifts in yourself, probably in your relationship with your husband. What about then? What else happened? Like what other shifts were happening, and then where did that lead you?
Yeah, yeah. So we around the same time, so early 2022, we also found new business coaches. And so it was great because we felt like we could adjust the offer that we had in our programs, massive overhaul on our own personal practices, like physical practice, spiritual practice, emotional practices. And so we were able to bring those things into our coaching, and so immediately we attracted higher level clientele because we were at a higher consciousness level. And so they were ready to get coached, at a higher level. So the stages that my husband was booking were higher paid, better gigs. The clients that we got to coach, we had a major overhaul. I told you it used to be like this one version of a mastermind. It was this entirely new coaching program. It was really exciting. um, and then we had these awesome moments where we got to travel to some of our gigs and some of our other work things with our whole family. And so it really became an entirely new lifestyle that was way more lucrative, way more fun. And it took, I mean, we were getting coached a lot, like a lot, to keep the momentum going. But that's how we ended up moving from Atlanta up to the Nashville area and Franklin. We were just following all of the steps that it was like, hey, if life can continue to get better and better, let's just keep it was just kept unfolding. And so and then we, started hosting more of our own events. Now I'm giving you like obviously
Yeah,
a lot of years in a
a lot
short
of years. Yeah.
thing. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a lot. But it sounds like, so what I'm hearing is that at the end of the day, it took some faith. It took some faith, like maybe not necessarily seeing the entire picture because you're in one place, you're in one situation, you're in Atlanta, there's certain circumstances, situations, events that are happening a certain way. But then it's like you just kind of maybe like knew that something had to change and that you wanted things a certain way. And then at that point, you surrounded yourself with mentors, coaches. You started reading books. You started to work on your beliefs, your mindsets. And it was almost like as you and your husband started to change yourself from within, it's almost like your external circumstances, they started to shift as well to match the changes that were happening within yourself. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, 100%. I'm a big believer that life will give you feedback.
Yeah.
And you may not see it as that all the time, but I feel like as you do this work and you hold on to a belief long enough to rewire it to where it's like now this is your actual belief and you're not just like by faith, I'm saying these things and by faith I'm doing certain things. And it's like, oh no, this is my actual reality now. And this is my subconscious belief. Life will absolutely put people in your life. It'll bring you relational, financial, physical rewards because of the work that you are doing internally. And as a result, you get to serve and help people at a much deeper level. And of course, life is going to give you positive feedback.
Yeah. And I love how you said that you get to serve and help other people. I would imagine that that's probably what most people in this space, they want to be able to do. They want to be able to serve and help other people. But sometimes just because of life happening and stressors and things like that, it can make it a little bit more challenging. And so for you and your family, your household, to be able to do that work, to be able to get yourself into that space where you could, where you can like, where you can almost like fill up your cup, where you fill up the internal cup
Yeah.
and then you can give more freely. It's like that. That's really awesome to hear that you're able
Yeah.
to go from that stage. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that Well, we didn't have a lot to offer in that
Yeah.
hard season. And, you know, it's one thing to find your way out of it. It's another thing to look back and reflect on how you found your way out of it so that you can turn around and help someone else do the same thing. Like your life is a map to help someone else who's going through something similar. Like, I don't know who originally said the quote, but we use it all the time. You are best positioned to help the previous version of yourself. And so there are tons of people out there who are in a very similar situation that you used to be in, and you found your way to this point. And so I know you created a program. I heard on one of your podcasts, you literally created a program to help people do exactly what you did to get through a really difficult season. And everybody has that capability. I don't know if you need to create an entire coaching program out of it. If you feel called to, like, do it. Absolutely do it. Speak, share, write on social media. Everybody has a platform in their hand every day now. And but even if it's just the next person who's sitting next to you, in the waiting room or whatever that looks like, you are positioned to help the previous version of you. And you just have to like kind of look back and say, how did I get through what I got through? And now I can share that with the next person.
Fascinating. And so, from where you're at right now, if somebody were in that situation, so if somebody were in that situation similar to what you might have been, like you, your husband, your family were in back in like 2021, and you had to like give them like maybe one or two pieces like of advice or like what they can do to be able to make that shift, what would that be, Brittany?
Oh, so good. Okay, so whenever my TEDx talk comes out, it's literally the second half of it. So I will say this. I mentioned micro compromises, all these micro compromises that you make to get yourself wherever you are that you're unhappy with. You can literally just flip it on its head and you can make micro commitments to yourself and keep them every day. And just start with the small wins. I would drink a glass of water every morning before I did anything else because I thought, okay, if I can treat my body with respect and do this healthy thing, I can continue to trust myself and, build the belief that I'm healthy and I'm worth it. So stack those small wins every day and let that build your courage bank, right? And so literally just keep tiny promises to yourself every day. Like start there. That's number one. And get people around you, get help around you, a counselor, a mentor, a good friend, a spiritual advisor. And they are not all the same person. I'll tell you that. They are not going to all be found in the same person because that's not even fair to put all that on one other human being. But we had separate counselors, mentors, business coaches, guides, and have that community of people around you so that you can borrow their belief in you until yours is strong enough to pull you for yourself. There was a moment for me a lot of times, like let's say we got this Mexican food and I didn't just like stop eating it cold turkey. That was not the truth. But like, let's say we ordered takeout and it's sitting on the counter and I had a plate. But I've been telling myself I'm on a health journey. I'm intuitively eating. I'm listening to my body. What do I actually want? Right. And I have a choice to make. Nobody else is having this conversation except me and me. Like my kids don't care what I eat. My husband doesn't care. Nobody else is like watching me or monitoring me. But I told myself I'm intuitively eating and I'm on a health journey. So when I am faced with a choice to either make a second plate, which is fine if you're still hungry, but I knew that I was full and satisfied. And the second plate was only going to be me, having an emotional reaction or whatever. I would keep that commitment to my intuitive health journey and I would not get the second plate. And then I would feel great about myself. Once the little uncomfortable feeling of like, oh, but I want it, once that passes and you go to lay your head on your pillow, you're like, yes, I did it. I listened to my body and I stuck to my commitment. And you feel like an entirely new person. So this is a very practical example, but like win after win like that, you're like, oh my gosh, I am somebody that I can actually count on and trust. And that's a massive thing to walk around in the earth with and interact with other people, because you're like, I know who I am and I know what I say and I know what I'm going to do. Is a big difference in the me from before all that.
Yeah, it's a big shift.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and then the self-talk starts to shift because you're like, hey, it's showing proof that hey, you're this type of person who is able to do these type of things and who's able to commit to and able to follow through it versus like the previous version.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
very cool. And that's going to
Yep.
be covered more in your you said your TED Talk as well. Is that right?
Yes. It's yes. Oh, so close. We're this close.
What else is coming up in the pipeline for you, Brittany?
Oh man, we've got my husband and I lead a new coaching community together. So it's called the Seed and Greatness Collective. Leaders, communicators, you don't have to be a speaker. It's anybody who just wants to be in a community of people who want to get better at their life and their business. We talk a lot about business, but we also talk a lot about personal development. So you can find that on any of my social media channels, Seed and Greatness Collective. It's got a lot of fresh energy, some really awesome people in there. So that's new. At some point this year, we are going back to Sedona and
Ah,
we're going to do a retreat there. So that's coming up. Man, we're just like trying to follow. We're just trying to keep up. It's a really beautiful season, and I'll say this: the all of these practices that got me up and out of that season, when you start to win, it's easy to back off of them, because you're like, oh, it's not so hard anymore. I'm kind of winning now. And I would just say, like, keep keep the fundamentals, right? Like, don't stop doing the basics. Don't stop doing the fundamentals because they got you to this point. And you can't just quit on them because you slide back kind of quickly. So keeping those fundamentals is still top of mind every day for me is, what does this look like to move my body? What does this look like to be in a mental health practice, a spiritual practice? So yeah.
I love how you share, stick with the fundamentals, stick with the basics. I think especially in this day and age, there's so much information out there, and like people are sharing like this Jedi mind trick and this Jedi trick and this special move and this one, but it's not always. If you talk to like the people who are like masters at their craft or really good at what they do, it's never really about that magical move or that magical practice or that magical extra. It's about the basics, the fundamentals, and then like mastering them to like a level that like other people cannot, or they have not spent the amount of time and energy towards mastering.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because all the people that you see out there who are doing big things, they're in the gym. They're shooting 1,000 shots a day, right? Like whatever fundamentals look like in your business and your niche, like it's not really very sexy, but it helps you get
Yeah.
to that point that we all want to get to.
And I just love that you share that. And I think it's just in this stage it's just a matter of a person being able to identify what they're truly passionate about. And for you, you were able to do that. You were able to identify what that was, and then you were able to identify what those basics were, what those fundamentals were specific to your dream and what you're going towards. And then you're just able to execute it. You're able to execute it over and over again.
Yes, and definitely not without trial and error. I mean, I think I had to find a lot of stuff that I didn't like before I realized, oh, this is what I actually do like. Yeah, but the faster you try, the faster you have the information, and now you know that's not for me. But if you just are in your head and you're like, well, maybe I'm thinking about it. Well, can sit on a maybe for years and just waste time. So I would just say, take the action, go do the thing. Like I was in that was a very exploratory phase for me. I did aerial yoga. I don't know if you've ever done aerial yoga. You're like hanging from the ceiling and doing these like flips and moves and stuff. It was a hilarious session. I learned I don't like it at all. But I did find another version of yoga that I love and is in my practice, every single week now. But you just have to go try stuff. That looked crazy. It's great.
That's cool. Yeah. And so it's just a matter of identifying what isn't, what you don't want as quickly as possible. And then just that way you get more clarity. As we wrap up, Brittany, I noticed that in in our past talk, I noticed that you had a quote, and I just want to be able to give you a chance to be able to explain this quote. But the way the quote is, life is going to give you every reason to compromise and not trust your brilliance, your beauty, and your light. Keep showing up. Keep being your authentic self, and that will always be more than enough for everything you want and need. What's that about? Can you share a little more about that? Love that one.
So good. That's like a takeoff, not a landing plane. I love it. Um, it's the piece of that quote that stands out the most to me is "You're more than enough." I would say, in my reflection and a lot of counseling and all this work that I've done, me not feeling like I was enough was the root cause of a lot of this pain, a lot of these unhealthy coping mechanisms, a lot of the things that kept me stuck or in unhealthy patterns. And so to just trust and know that you are more than enough, if you could hold on to it just long enough to take action and believe in yourself and take steps towards the life that you really want, everything will begin to change really quickly for you. But I know that it has been a route that to this day I'm still in a practice of overcoming that. Um, so yeah, just believe like you everything that you already like everything you need is already within you. There's nothing you're going to be called to do or say or serve people with that is not already within you. And that's you're more than enough.
So you're more than enough. I love that, and I love how just the realness of it, in terms of you sharing that. Hey, you're still working through that, and just like me, I'm still working through that every day. And so, like for the people listening, it's like we're not these people that are already like perfect, or it's like we already reached the end destination.
Yeah.
It's like what I'm hearing is like it's a constant evolution. It's a constant process.
Mhm.
Continue to work and work and work. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I certainly have not arrived. Not even close. But I know enough to help somebody who's on their way. And that's enough. That's all you need.
That's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it, Brittany. Yeah, thank you so much for your time today, Brittany. Yeah, no, I really, really enjoyed this conversation with you, and I know our listeners who are tuning in, they're gonna love this conversation as well, and all the different nuggets and things that you shared throughout this entire show. So yeah, thank you so
Yeah.
much, Brittany, for being on
Thank
today.
you.
Appreciate you.
I enjoyed it so much. Thank you.
All right.